Hello and welcome to Top Headline. I'm Jordan Bellinger. Today we are joined by the senior editor of The New American, Bill Jasper. We are going to talk about the article titled Climate Alarmist Temperature Data are Erroneous and Incomplete, says researcher. So, can you tell us a little bit about the study that was done in this article?
Yes, this is an article that we just had published today by Michael Tennant. Very important. You can be sure that most of the so-called mainstream media is not going to give it a lot of play, and they should. This is very important. Dr. John McLean, who is a climate researcher and has been, most people would say would fall into the climate alarmist camp. That is, those who are the establishment scientists who have been promoting the global warming hysteria for now 25 years. And Dr. McLean did an audit of the IPCC, that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UN body that has been at the center of promoting this ever since the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, which I attended. And this is amazing. So after all of these years, and after many prominent scientists have questioned the very database on which and the computer models that the UN IPCC has been using all of these years, they finally got an audit. And it's quite amazing what Dr. McLean found. And so we know that he wasn't considered an outsider that they could ignore, because the Hadley Center Hadley Center Climate Research in the UK is the main data set that he was auditing. They agreed to revise their findings, and he found some amazing things. They had data which was showing in some places in Colombia and in the Caribbean, etc., where temperatures were recorded as being supposedly 176 degrees. And they had obviously that makes it quite a bit hotter and gives credence to their global warming theories. So there were many, many things that were wrong here. Others were ship data that were supposedly being taken of the ocean, but with the GPS coordinates that they were using showed that these ships were 100 miles or so on land. Obviously something was amiss there. Now, why hadn't these things been caught? Either sloppiness, negligence, or actually, as we've reported, as other unofficial audits have shown over the years, they're cooking the books. They want to show higher and higher temperatures that will give some credibility to their claims that the Earth is warming up in a frightful fashion due to anthropogenic human-caused effects. So this should be a huge nail in the coffin of the global warming hysteria. But of course, it's going to take a lot of people getting this out to a lot of the public, because you're not going to find the Associated Press, the New York Times, CBS, NBC, PBS putting it out there.
Right. Do you see this data going more mainstream with the Hadley Center in Britain accepting the results and saying that they need to revise them?
Well, it should. It should, because this is a huge admission on their part that, wow, our data is wrong. They haven't confessed to or explained why it was so wrong so many different ways. I mean, it was not just a few incidences. I mean, it's very widespread. And Dr. Anthony Watts, the meteorologist who runs the website What's Up With That, has been at the forefront, along with a number of other climate researchers, meteorologists, in showing that the data sets are based on the ones that are frequently used, on weather stations that are completely out of protocol with what are the established things that weather stations should be. They have many of these weather station thermometers sitting right next to motors and on tarmac where it's being cooked in the sun. The regulations on where the weather stations are supposed to be are very strictly regulated. They have to be in a grassy area that isn't going to concentrate the heat. They have to be, they're not supposed to be in urban areas because you have the urban heat island effect. But hundreds in the United States and thousands worldwide are in violation of these standards. And when you're relying on data sets from those, obviously that's going to give you a cooked temperature. So this latest audit is very important, and it really corroborates what we've been saying for now going on 30 years. And at the beginning, we were very much alone at the New American in opposing this. And over the last 2 decades particularly, a huge number of scientists, including those that were previously convinced themselves because they hadn't really delved into the data. They were assuming that the data was correct because they didn't think any of their colleagues would be going to such extensive measures to create fraudulent data, that they just accepted it. But after a while, many of these scientists whom we've interviewed at the New American, and we have them on video at many of these conferences around the world, they say, wait, this is really wrong. We cannot justify spending hundreds of billions and even trillions of dollars that the UN and the Alarmists are saying we have to spend to completely upend civilization to deal with this supposed threat of global warming.
Right. Now, Michael Tennant says in this article that this is the first audit of this data used by the IPCC. Is there a reason for that, or is it just, like you were saying, people ignoring the
No, there have been calls for audits because we've reported on quite a number of other whistleblowers who worked in various of the meteorological and climatology centers who said, wait a second, something's wrong here, or who examined most of these real expressions of alarm about what was happening are based upon computer models. They just simply devise a computer model, they have a formula for it, they say, oh goodness gracious, look at this, we have this terrible thing happening, it's an existential threat, it will end Earth as we know it, we have to engage in all of these new regulations globally that the UN is proposing. And so there have been many calls for audits, and that's the principal thing that's involved in science is reproducibility. Mm-hmm. The data has to be available for other scientists to examine, and in so many of these cases, we find that the so-called scientists, the climate scientists that are proposing all of these new governmental regulations, refuse to produce the evidence so that other scientists can examine it. And that should be the warning sign, the hallmark right there that something's wrong with it. We just recently had a very big scandal with regard to Dr. Brian Wansink at Cornell University. And this has been reported all over the mainstream news, he was a celebrity scientist. He won the Nobel Prize in 2007. He was on all the TV programs all the time because he would make pithy remarks and whatnot, and then everybody looked to him for the last over a decade. And just this last month in September of 2018, he announced that he was going to step down because other researchers started digging into his data and found out that he was completely making up a lot of data or fraudulently using data. So the Journal of American Medicine and all these journals that had been publishing his work uncritically were finally forced to say, hey, wait a second, this is wrong. This is a much bigger scandal because the IPCC involves hundreds of scientists and regulations that they propose govern the whole world. So this is a very big breakthrough here.
Right. Yeah, well, thank you very much for being on Top Headline today. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the insight that you have provided for us with this article.